Not everyone has the privilege of working in an environment others view as a holiday paradise. When you're the boss, that's a bonus. Such surroundings provide a bond with nature and an experience that is not lost on Manuel Ward, manager and owner of the Animal Flower Cave. In reality, though, it's not always a breeze, and like anything else, it has its challenges.
I mean, there's different types of days. At the moment, we're in an environment where the sea is really quiet and calm. The water is nice and clear. But if you come here around December, January, February, during those months, because of the winter storms in the North Atlantic, we can get waves that are big enough to come hit these cliffs and come right inside the restaurant. So I lose tables. I have to move everything back. So it has its challenges. Also, dealing with people is a challenge. There's days when I don't even get a chance to look up and look at that sea because you're just so busy.
For Manuel Ward, the journey started decades ago and underlines the strength of family ties.
My father asked me to come back from Venezuela because I left Barbados when I finished secondary school at Foundation and went to live in Venezuela, which is my mother's country. My mother was the Venezuelan ambassador to Barbados back in the 50s. And I went to find out what my mother's country was like. And after 5 years, my dad messaged me and said that he needed somebody to come and help him because he was getting too old to run the business. So I came back in 1980 and I took over the business. Well, I didn't take it over. I ran the business with my dad, which, truth of the matter is, it was not the easiest thing in my life. Working for your father, especially, certain types of fathers. He was in the army, he's old school, very disciplinarian. So it was a challenge. After about 3 or 4 years, he eventually handed me over the whole business, and I ran it from then. And then I had different people managing it for me because I used to get bored. It wasn't like what it is now. It's just a little bar. It wasn't that busy. So I went and started working at a restaurant on the West Coast called Carambola. I worked at Sandy Lane. I opened Sandy Lane and trained all of their F&B staff. I opened the Cliff restaurant. I did Fishpot. I did Atlantis. I did Nishi, Mullins. All these places I managed. And then about 15 years ago, my wife and I, at that time I had my brother running this for me. And we took it back over. And about 10 years ago, my wife and I built this restaurant and the bar and everything, and made it all new because the old bar was run down. My father had built the old bar back in 60. And that bar he built in 60 was to replace the one that my grandfather had built in 27. Now, the one that my granddad built in 27 got destroyed by Hurricane Janet, in 55. And 4 or 5 years later, my father rebuilt the bar. And then I tore it down 10 years ago because it was all worn out, wood ants, termites, woodworm. And as I was tearing it down, and me and the wife were talking, and we were saying, look, if we're gonna build back the bar, let's do something a little bit more substantial. So we ended up doing a dining room, a whole kitchen and everything, and not wood. Except for COVID, I can't look back.
Manuel shared a bit more of the history of the cave.
I have found remains of Arawak people along these cliffs, and there was a village just up here, a place called Sands, where they would come during this time of the year when the sea was quiet to harvest the ocean around here, wilks, lobsters, sea cat, all that kind of stuff. And then there was a Welshman who was the rector of St. Lucy's Parish Church, and he was a naturalist. And he wrote a book called The Natural History of Barbados. If you go online and type in The Natural History of Barbados, you will see the book. It's Old English, so it's a little bit difficult reading sometimes. But he talks about lots of different things that he found in Barbados and drawings and stuff. And one chapter he dedicated to the Animal Flower Cave. Now, the Animal Flower Cave where did we get that name from? Now, when he went down in the cave, he saw these, they look like little flowers in the pools. And you get them, some are yellow, some are brown. They get very small ones that are blue. So he saw that they looked like a flower, but he could tell that it was an animal because there was a worm. It's actually a worm living in a tube. And the top of the worm opens up. And that's how the worm eats and breathes. So he called it the animal flower. And that's how we got our name, Animal Flower Cave.
So what drives the renewed interest in the Animal Flower Cave after a period where the hype wasn't really there?
Two things, I think. Back in the day, because of the old bar that was here, it was quite run down. The whole surroundings were looking, it was tired. It was a tired destination. And I think a bit of mismanagement. And then with me and the wife building this restaurant here on at the Flower Cave, it was like, you wouldn't believe me, it was like an injection. It was like a revamp. Because what happened was that because of my history in the hotel and restaurant industry, I created quite a big following, people that know me for years that used to come and eat in places that I was working. So when they heard that I had my place up at the Animal Flower Cave, because all the other places were other people's and I worked for them. This was mine's, as we say. And they wanted to come and check it out. So they came up here to check it out. Of course, they would bring their children or their grandchildren. And then they, of course, never went down the cave. So then they went down the cave. And then they would go back to school in the week and talk to their friends. Wow, we was up at the Flower Cave and we were swimming in the pool and it was so sweet. And so, of course, those kids now go back home and tell their parents, man, so-and-so and so-and-so went up by the Flower Cave and they had a great time and the lunch was really good and the food was nice. And so that, you know, and also at the moment we have social media and my wife she's one of the best. I mean, when it comes to social media, she's just control it, right? And she does a lot of postings, which help to bring us up to people get to know about us.
It's an experience that, as long as the rules are followed, a visit to the cave can be safely enjoyed, even by those who are not too adventurous.
So you're going with a guide, so the guide is there with you. There's nothing that we can build in the Flower Cave because when the sea gets rough, whatever you put down there is destroyed. My grandfather, back in the 30s, he was associated with the railway, the train. And when they shut it down, he brought a whole bunch of the railway lines and embedded them in the rock to create banisters that people could hold on to as they walked through the cave. Man, the first set of big waves that came through, just bend the metal and break it off. Because you don't realize the power. So every day we have a guide who goes down and checks the cave. And because the guides have been working here for years, they know what to look for. If you see water running out of one of the pools in the back, you know that if the water running out from there, it means the water coming in. So you know that they got big waves coming. Also, you can just basically look at the ocean and see. And I live next door. I would know the night if they got big waves because I would hear the pounding. And sometimes it's so hard that you feel the ground vibrate when the waves are real big. So there's only that. That's why we have a notice, and we tell people, you know, that you're doing this at your own risk, because it's a natural sea cave. There's no pathway. The rock's slippery, the wet, but that's part of the whole thing. I mean, I think it would be horrible if we could put down pathways and stuff in the cave. It would be horrible if we did it because it would spoil that natural feeling.
The sea anemones form an important part of the uniqueness of the Animal Flower Cave.
I don't believe they do very much for the ecosystem. They're just they're worms that live and they feed off of plankton. But you know, people say, "Oh, I went up by the Flower Cave and I seen the flowers." I'm talking about more from years ago, because if I get a heavy rainfall last night or today, by tomorrow that water is dripping through the roof of the cave into the pools. And when that water go into the pools, and the salt water pools in the cave, it kill every flower because they can't take the fresh water. Now, this time of the year, when you see the sea quiet and no waves are coming into the cave, the pools in there start to dry out. And when the pool dries out, the flowers die. We invested quite a few years ago. We put a really thick electric cable down into the cave. So we have a pump, a pool pump that we got from Pumps and Mechanicals, and we turn it on and pump water to the flowers to keep them alive, because otherwise they would die. Now, in the December, January, February, when the sea is real rough, I don't have to do so much pumping. But if the waves are really big, the waves will tear out the flowers too, out the pools. So, it's a give and take scenario. I also what we do now too. I had a guy go and get about 100 flowers last week from diving off the coast and finding them and bringing them in and put them in the pools. Because prior to this week, I must have only had about 4 or 5 down there. Okay. Also, the sea crabs. Sea crabs love them, eat them. You just can't. For until you put one there, if it don't go in far enough and hide itself, the crab just pick it out and eat it. So they're fighting a hard battle. If the rainwater come, if the pool dry out, if the crab don't get it, if the sea don't wash it out, So it's be up and down. Sometimes you get 2 flowers, sometimes you get 20. It's just the way it is.
No doubt the children enjoyed the play park experience, but along with the exceptional creatures inextricably linked to the cave, what do visitors find most appealing?
The naturalness of the place, the fact that it has not been made into a Disney World scenario. If you go online, animalflowercave.com, you would see they have an option to look at our menu, and you would see that our menu is West Indian. We have 1 or 2 things that are international, but the rest of it is West Indian. We have Trinidadian, we have Jamaican, we have Barbadian, we have Guyanese, in all the years that I worked in, Sandy Lane, the Cliff, very high-end restaurants. People will always ask me when I was at the table, where's a good place that we can go and try local food? And I would always be like, I'm not too sure what to tell them. Unless I told them, well, go behind a van and you see a van parked on the side of the road, stop, but that rice and peas and I said, if I ever get a chance to do my own restaurant, I can make sure that it is something that has local food. And I mean, I have a sheep farm in the back. I have about nearly 300 sheep now, and I raise all of my animals is to serve my lamb stew here in the restaurant. People love that. People love the fact that they can come to my restaurant and eat a sheep, a lamb that is nothing to do with New Zealand or Australia or America or anywhere out there. And it's raised here. It was made here in Barbados because it's something that was made by man. Called the black belly sheep, and a natural animal of the earth. It was something that was hybrid. And that is something, it's natural. It's not fed grain and, with a whole bunch of chemicals and stuff in it. They go grazing on the cliff. And so they love these kind of things. My fish cakes in like some places where they ain't got no fish in them. My fish cake, and we use the real cod, real salt fish. But that, one of my top desserts is stew guava. The amount of locals that love the stew guava and stew mango.
From way back, the cave has had an extra special appeal, and through the years has been the center of a number of special moments.
Well, it's believed that the Indians that used to come up here, they had a relationship with underground. If you trace their history in South America, Central America, all up through the Caribbean islands, things that were in a cave or underground, it was a part, for them it was like a special place. So I believe they saw the cave as a special place. We had the filming of Outer Banks. The last scene where the guys were in the pool and they blew up. That was all down in the Animal Flower Cave. And Billy Ocean, he did a video, and there you could go online and what's the color of love. And Riri did a whole set of photo shoots. That was before she even became big on. So yeah, I think we get a good coverage from our local and our international visitors.
The excellent service by well-trained staff contributes to the extraordinary experience at the cave. Sherlyn, one of the well-trained and knowledgeable tour guides, is naturally quite at home, even in the sometimes seemingly intimidating surroundings of the cave. Like his colleagues, Sherlyn is not only a tour guide, but a craftsman and salesman.
It's actually from St. Lucia. It's good for the body. It's called hematite.
The guys who are over there now, most of them have been here with us 30 years, 20 odd years. So they've been doing this their whole life. So they know what to say, how to do, where to watch, be careful here, watch a step there, this kind of stuff. And we do, if anybody comes on new, I put them with one of them, and they have to spend at least a week to a week and a half with that person. And then that person has to tell me, yeah, they're ready. Until they tell me that they're ready, I don't let them go down with people.
In addition to the wide range of craft made available by the tour guides, the gift shop operated by Laura is full of possibilities, with a special touch for the holiday season.
We got a nice product. It's not overcrowded, I didn't want to. If you look at the restaurant, you see how I built it. I mean, I built this whole thing. I had no drawings. I ain't getting the architect drawings or nothing. I just went and took a fishing line, with a rock and put it down and walk to where I think was it far enough. I said, okay, that's the front. Here's the side. And I built it out of stone, the rocks from the sea cliff. And I had some old coral stone that I then put on the inside. So the inside have the coral stone finish and the outside have the rock finish. And it's low, so it blends in. When you come in here, you don't really realize that all of this down here. It's not until you come down here that you see, oh, wow. Because I see it with the people. We'd be standing up there and just walk down and they'd be like, oh, wow. And then they're calling the friends, come and look at this, come and look at this.
The cave provides many educational experiences.
Oh, okay, to begin with, sadly, we at Barbados, if the sea is rough, we say the tide high. And that's really misleading, because there's two changes on the tide a day. There's too high and too low, normally. And the high tide and low tide has no effect on the flower cave, because the floor of the cave is above sea level. So even when the sea come up to high tide, it still don't come into the cave. What affects us is when we get big waves coming down from the North Atlantic. I mean, the other day, they had a storm that was north of us, and we had a big wave come down. It just lasted a day, but water was coming all the way in here, and then by next day, it going back down quiet again. So it's nothing to do with the tide, it's to do with the waves coming down from the Atlantic. The age of the stone, we had a German university, this is years ago, did a study, and over there you'll see the first cap where it then goes out again. That top part is supposed to be like 250,000 years old, but the part underneath is supposed to be like nearly up 5 to 600,000 years old. So it shows the time that it took for this to happen when it was a reef, because all this was a reef that was under the sea and eventually got pushed out of the water. I get school kids come up. We do a special package for school kids. We charge 10 Barbados. Kids are normally 20, but we do it at 10. Because I think it's good that the children get to learn about the island.
So what about a trip to the north of Barbados to experience the cave firsthand?
Don't come on a Monday, because we don't open on a Monday. Tuesday to Sunday.
Just a slight word of caution though. At certain times of the year, usually around the North American winter season, it's probably best to call first just to check on the conditions in the cave.
If you plan to come to the restaurant, ain't a problem because we good. But if you plan for the cave, give us a call. By 9:30, 10 o'clock, we would know what the conditions are in the cave, so we could tell you, yeah, it open, or no, it not open, or yes, it open and you can swim in the pool, or it open but you cannot swim in the pool. So people would see the beauty of it. I mean, there's very few places in the world where you can go and swim in a pool in a cave.
The Animal Flower Cave, definitely a piece of the rock.